We think we have very little ability to affect change of that government. This government is only for immoral people. What they meant was a people that are intelligent enough and active enough in their own right, in their government, at their level. One of the things that the left does better than the right is organizing and taking action. In order to do that, we have to reach these people. That's the only way this government works.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are Kurt and Kristen Ludhart, your hosts, co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and help elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. So business owners, what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience of 76.5 million people that we call Liberty Spenders? Now, these Americans spend $5 trillion a year, and they're motivated to buy from businesses and brands that share their values. If you want to learn more about that, you can get access to our new best-selling book at libertyspenders.com/free.
Our guest today is Colonel Rob Maness, U.S. Air Force. He's a combat veteran with 32 years of service, including leadership in the Pentagon during 9/11 and commanding bomber squadrons in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now a prominent conservative commentator and host of the Rob Maness Show, he brings his expertise in national security and advocacy in limited government to inspire and inform. Rob.
Yes, you guys are in for a treat. Welcome.
Hi, Kurt and Kristen. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited too, because we get to explore some of your military service background, which I think is really cool. 32 years in the Air Force, from bomb disposal. See, I'm picturing that movie where they were, what's that, Hurt Locker, right? Where they were disposing bombs. Was that your day-to-day life experience?
That was, but I was well before the Iraq War where that's set.
Yeah.
I was 17 when I started.
Slightly off.
I was 17 when I started in that business
wow.
back in 1979. And so we had a little bit of different picture, but same concept. Matter of fact, our crowd predicted that a future war was going to be an improvised explosive device based war where most casualties would be caused by those types of devices, and EOD, as we call it, explosive disposal, would be the center stage forces that protected our folks and stopped the enemy from accomplishing its goals. And we were exactly right in Iraq.
Yeah. Well, You did that, and then you commanded squadrons in Iraq and Afghanistan. So that was both during the post 9/11 period or before?
Well, I commanded one B-1 bomber squadron, the 9th Bomb Squadron, out of Dyess Air Force Base, Texas, and we did combat operations in Afghanistan and supported Iraq's combat operations during both of the deployments I did with them over a 2-year period, and that was post 9/11. In the Pentagon, I was in the Pentagon on 9/11, and that was probably the worst day of my military career, being in the premier headquarters of the world's most powerful military, and we're strategically attacked by a non-state entity very effectively. As a matter of fact, you see how we changed everything from policy to organization of the government. Fought the war for over 20 years in Afghanistan eventually. So it changed everything. It changed our families' lives. It changed my life, changed the direction that most people were going. And taking command of the 9th Bomb Squadron, one of the highest honors after that, was one of the highest honors I could ever have gotten. And then to get the opportunity to take those young men and women into combat twice was a rare privilege, because it's a privilege to lead American men and women in combat.
Yeah. Well, we were both in college at that time, and I still remember, like a lot of folks, just watching the news in disbelief about what was going on. And it's amazing how so much time has passed. We have staff right now working for us who don't remember any of it, who were born after that went down. And so it's important to remember what you're talking about. And I imagine it's a totally different experience when you're watching it on TV, but when you're there and trying to figure out what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your perspective is from the inside out. And most people, even my wife and the kids that were living at the time, my youngest son turns 21 here at the end of September, so he wasn't born until 2004. But all the other kids, our 4 other children, all saw it externally from different parts of the country, and because they were different ages, and then right there in North Virginia where we lived.
I was in the height of my really journey into becoming really passionately involved in politics. That all happened for me during college, and I was, I had Fox News on in the morning when I would be getting ready. I tease Kurt for being the big nerd, but I was quite one by that time as well, and had it on in the morning. And so I was seeing it before my morning class. And I remember I was slated to do devotions that morning. We both went to Indiana Wesleyan University, so faith, Christian college. And I just remember calling him and just, being all freaked out and wanting to get together. And I still tease him because I was so distraught and crying and just like, what's happening? And I just remember Kurt trying to, I think, be calm about it and just said, listen, don't worry. We're going to bomb some people and this will all be over quick. That's what he said. Like as if that was before. I mean, obviously we didn't know that, we didn't understand what was happening, but I just remember thinking, how could you be so flippant about this? But he was just like, somebody's going to pay for this. And
it's very interesting being on the inside. That day, my real job was called nuclear operations. I was an operations officer, nuke ops in the Joint Staff. That's the staff that works directly for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Dan Kane is the chairman today. Donald Trump appointed in this administration. And so he's got this whole staff called the Joint Staff. And part of that is nuclear operations. So we do things like write nuclear war plans, train the president and his military aides on the use of the Black Book, which is nuclear decision handbook that's in the bag they call the football. We wrote that. We trained people in that. And those kind of things. That was our day-to-day job. So when this thing all hit, at first people were like, well, it's an aircraft accident. And I was like, no, this looks like an attack, right, the way this is developing. So I went to talk to our boss, who all the bosses there are 1-stars. I was a major, a young 04 is the rank number of that. So I was the snack officer, and everybody knows in the military that if you're the snack officer in a flying unit, you're the junior guy. And I was the Pentagon snack officer, Joint Staff, inside the National Military Command Center. But we worked with the operations team where if you call 1-800-PENTAGON and you need help from the Pentagon, that's where the call gets taken. We work with them because they are part of the nuclear command and control process. But eventually that day, they kept us all in the building and only evacuated all the non-essential personnel. So this core group of people were staying. And eventually somebody looked up and said, it's not a nuke thing. We don't need the nuke guys. You guys go home. So we eventually evacuated out of our office. But I didn't get more than 10 feet out the door before I ran into a friend of mine that worked with us in the National Military Command Center, and realized that there were people being rescued and pulled out of the fire not too far from where I exited the building. And there was a triage area being set up by the medical clinic personnel that were right down the hill from us. So I just ran into him and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He briefed me up, and I turned around and looked at the building and saw gurneys coming out on these big giant golf carts they use to move around inside the building sometimes. And I walked over and met up with one, and I started helping take care of people. And eventually they couldn't get the fire department inside to the building's got 5 rings. And then in the center is a courtyard. It's called Ground Zero. Ground Zero Cafe is there. Ground Zero meaning ground zero for a nuclear bomb from Russia back in the old days. But they couldn't get the fire department into the area. So they asked for volunteers that were working the triage area and helping get medical attention to people that needed it and get them evacuated to go back into the building to help fight the fire and see if we could find any more living casualties and those kind of things. And I volunteered with a couple of hundred more people to go back in And we did that. To get in, though, we had to go through a corridor that was so full of smoke. We had to form a human chain holding on to the front person in front of your shoulder to get through. And use. There's a reason why people in the military are required to wear T-shirts. We all took our T-shirts off and wet them in water as we were going into the building and used them for smoke masks to get through that smoke, by the way. I spent 20-something years before I learned that the hard way. But anyway, we got inside, and I worked all the rest of the day up until about 5 o'clock when we were ordered to evacuate, right at the point where the front of the airplane broke through the glass wall in between one of the alleyways. I think it was between the B and C ring. So A, B, and C, an alleyway in between each ring, and the nose of the airplane, the cockpit, punched a hole through that before it stopped and spilled out into that area. And I worked with a team that worked in that area up until about 5 p.m. that evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the next day I was pulled into a new group called the Future Operations Group to help all the combatant commanders figure out how do we fight a global war when we're organized regionally and we're resourced regionally. And then we were off to trying to find out who did it.
So you were involved in that and sort of that planning, and then you ended up with the commanding a squadron, and then were you at Kirkland Air Force Base? There leading that base.
I was at Dias, commanding the 9th Bomb Squadron. Did that until 2006. Went to Navy War College up in Newport, Rhode Island. After that, I went and became the vice wing commander at the Air Force's largest airborne intelligence wing in Omaha, Nebraska, the 55th Wing. That flies all these intelligence airplanes. You hear about them, but you don't really ever see them. They're called Rivet Joint. They're based on the 707. It's all these airplanes that are out there gathering intelligence. They're flying right now over the Gulf of America, looking at Venezuela, looking at Mexico, trying to find out where the cartels are. They're flying over in Europe. They're flying in the Middle East, supporting all these operations. So that's the wing that I was the vice commander of that. And after that, we had to create a new command in the Air Force called Global Strike Command to handle our nuclear weapons because somebody misplaced 6 of them in North Dakota and Louisiana one night. And about 10 months in, I got asked to help do that. And about 10 months into that, they asked me to go take command of this wing at Kirtland Air Force Base, which turns out to be the wing with an extremely large nuclear mission and extremely large base, 53,000 acres, I think 100 units.
Wow.
At Sandia National Labs was hosted on the base, and I was the commander of the base. But I was junior to all the commanders of a lot of these organizations. So it was very interesting, though. It was mostly fun, but as things go, sometimes the fun turns into, oh my goodness, we have this happening. But
fun with flashes
very
of
proud
scary.
Of those guys. So they were the Tigers, the 377th Air Base Wing Tigers. Ironically, the EOD unit that I had there under my command was selected as the best EOD unit in the entire Air Force the year and 4 months that I was in command of the wing. And one of their sergeants was selected as one of the 12 outstanding airmen of the year from the entire Air Force.
So you've got all of these realities of military service. You were there on 9/11. What's one thing you wish more Americans understood about, maybe it's about the enemies we face or about our military and what we need? What's something that most Americans probably don't appreciate the way that somebody who's been there does?
I think, unfortunately, we have less than 1% of Americans that volunteer to serve anymore. These days, it was about 1.5% at the end of my career. It's less than 1% now. And one of the things that I wish more people understood is that we rely on volunteers to do this service. This service, defense, is the only thing specified that the responsibility of the federal government in the Constitution of the United States. That's how important it is. It's a specified function of the federal government, so it should be. And a specified function of the states to have what's now called the National Guard, but militias, citizen soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, Coast Guardsmen are serving. And most Americans don't really truly understand that now, and they don't understand the type of culture and ethics that it takes to not just serve a career, but to serve an enlistment successfully and provide whatever function an individual is providing to their country. And I wish more people would understand that, and that when we take our oath, we take an oath of enlistment or an oath of commissioning, and I've taken both because I was enlisted first. When we take that oath, we take it to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. We don't take it to a party. We don't take it to a person. We're not loyal to an individual as a human being. We're loyal to the Constitution, which also specifies the commander in chief, and that's the president. The president's dual role in the Constitution as the chief executive of the laws of the land and the commander in chief of the armed forces. So whoever's in that office is part of that oath. More citizens understanding that would be much better for our country, especially in light of what we've seen the last, since the Obama administration, really, where people really don't understand that, as a serving colonel in the Air Force, President Obama was the president when I retired. His signature's on my retirement document. Now, I could have asked for somebody else's and probably gotten it. It's been done before, but that's not the way I believe it. As a matter of fact, I have pictures of two presidents that I served on my wall. One of them is with me welcoming President Obama to my base. So you see it all the time in Andrews, where the colonel is out there welcoming the president. That's the wing commander, his designee or her designee. I got to do that in Kirtland for him and for Joe Biden. I don't have the picture of Joe Biden framed, but I do have the one of Obama, and then I've got one of George W. Bush. Some people look at that, especially since I went into politics in 2014 and ran for U.S. Senate. And the first people that saw that said, "Hey, they're going to use that against you." I'm like, "Why?" Well, because it's Barack Obama.
Yeah. I know, which is so silly.
And I said,
maybe here's the important question: which one's in the bigger frame or in the better placement and displayed in
George
your
W. Bush.
office? I'm kidding. I know what you mean, though.
But I never got to do that picture with George W. Bush. But I do have his picture up because he was president for most of the time that I was working on the Nuclear Decision Handbook, what formally is called the Black Book, and all of us get a cover from those books. They age out and get replaced, so the old covers are used to frame something, and the president that you served with is pictured in that frame along with that cover. So that's why his picture's in there. It has nothing to do with my loyalty to him even though I've been a Republican all my life, with the exception of a few months. The issue is that he was president of the United States. It was an honor to serve the United States at that level. And especially after 9/11, I mean, I was part of this very small team that got to give advice to Secretary Rumsfeld and President Bush as we were trying to figure out who did this, why they did it, and then how we were going to respond, and then develop the response, which we did very quickly, by the way. I was proud to be a small part of that.
If you're listening to this show, it's probably because you understand something most people don't. Marketing to Liberty Spenders isn't just about ads or tactics, it's about trust. And in the real world, trust moves through relationships. And that's why private introductions and deal flow are such a core part of what we do.
So FastPass is a private introduction and deal flow network for Christian and conservative leaders who already have influence and want to scale fast. It's not open networking, it's intentional introductions between people who already share alignment. We've seen one client land a $25,000 opportunity from a single introduction. Another told us that FastPass has become his largest source of referrals, not because of volume, but because of fit. And yet another closed her equity round at a key moment just due to the right introduction.
When you book a one-to-one consult with us, we're not handing you a list or making big promises. Instead, we're having a real conversation about what you're building, who you want to meet, and whether FastPass makes sense for this season for you. So no pressure, no hustle, and no awkward pitch from us.
Yeah. If you're ready to grow through relationships instead of forcing everything on your own, head to libertyspenders.com/FastPass and book a one-to-one consult with us.
In worst case, you leave with clarity. Best case, the right introductions change the trajectory of what you're building.
Okay, back to the episode.
So you've done the bomber squadron, you survived the Pentagon in 9/11. What's the funniest, oops moment from your Air Force days that would make for a good story?
Actually, it was when I was very young. Because the younger you are, the more the higher risk you're willing to take, and you take it really without putting much thought into it. And of course, I was in a pretty high risk job. Although flying is very high risk too. But bomb disposal was pretty high risk. Anyway, I was stationed in England.
Sounds like it.
In the early 1980s. My second assignment was to England, and the Irish Republican Army was still quite active in those days. One of the things that we did, we were close to Oxford University, and there's a British Army Reserve Officer Training Regiment at Oxford University. And one of the things that we did to make nice with our hosts for American there was give training in booby traps and explosive, demolition and those kind of things to those officer trainees, university students at Oxford University. We had a course of training set up for them. We used ammunition. We used munitions, but they were not full strength munitions. Anyway,
okay.
I was instructing somebody on how to disarm my own booby trap that used a hand grenade training device that had an actual explosive in it, but it was small enough where it wouldn't burst the grenade. So when it went off, it wasn't going to send fragments of heat and molten metal into people's bodies. But anyway, I was instructing this group of students on how to disarm this before they actually went through the course themselves. And the thing went off on me. And luckily, I was following instructions and wearing my really cool looking shooter's glasses that were impact resistance because my face was pointed right at my face when I did it. That was probably the funniest thing that ever happened to me because all of my students said, "Oh, I guess that's not the way you're supposed to do it."
Right. I thought you're supposed to be teaching us this, and then you seemed surprised when this happened, like you were not expecting. I just turned around and I said, "That's exactly what you're not supposed to do. Now you know how to do it the right way." Of course, my ears were ringing. I couldn't hear anything. Yes.
Yeah.
The lesson has commenced and completed. You can now.
I bet that story has been told in a couple of bars in the UK by
Maybe.
Folks who were there.
Maybe.
So, well, I know one of the new things you're working on now is a book that you have coming out in the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode might come out, a couple months from now. So December-ish 2025 is when you're expecting it to come out.
Yeah. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, hopefully, but we're not sure. The scheduled date is early December 2025. It's the book. It's not a biography exactly, but it does use anecdotes from my life and to talk about things that I've learned. And the intent of the book is to answer a question. And the question I get, and this has happened whether I was 18 years old or 19 years old and instructing Oxford University Reserve Officer training students, or in a commander's call in front of my troops later in my career, or in town hall meetings with citizens that lived around the base where I was the commander of the whole base, or in town halls in political town halls when I ran for the U.S. Senate, or even today, I'm still active in politics. I'm on the executive committee in Harrison County, Mississippi for the Republican Party. So we answer questions to folks that are interested in talking about politics. The most often asked question is when you're discussing a problem that is appropriate to that, whatever that population is in the room is, well, yeah, sir, but what can I do about it?
Right.
The book's titled, What You Can Do About It. And it uses stories from my life growing up and being enlisted in the Air Force and a commander in the Air Force and being a political candidate and those kind of things to lay out what I learned about one thing. And that one thing is how to organize so that we can win in politics, so we can actually wield power in government. Because one of the things that the left does every single time better than the right is organizing and taking action to win.
Well, it's definitely a powerful title and a powerful thing for people to think about. So what made you think to go that route? were you prompted by, I mean, you mentioned that people would ask you about this while you're out and about, but was there any other key moment that you thought, okay, this needs to be written with this in mind?
Well, people have been bugging me for about 15 years since I got into politics to write a book.
So you finally just got worn down.
It must be. Well, that's part of it. I actually wanted to do it. And I was even before I was 7 years old, I was reading biographies. Back in the 60s, there was a series of kids' biographies about American, notable Americans that I had access to, and I read them all. I was an avid reader. But when people would ask me to write a book about myself, by that time I had been a commander, and one of the things they teach us, and they really, really hammer it into you, is humility. And I could not get myself to overcome my desire to remain a humble person and set out to write a book about just myself. So I thought about it for a very long time. I did actually think about it. When people started asking me to do it, I started thinking about it. So it's been about 15 years. And then about a year ago, I really sat down and started making some notes to myself about, well, what are we going to do with this? And I found a partner to help me do it. And between the two of us, we came up with this approach because we wanted to, have information about me in it, but also information about others that I've come across that lend itself to telling the story, to lay down in the book things that people can read about and then act on, with the final result being them winning by answering the question of what they can do about it, whatever the question is. Now, a lot of it's related to politics in this case, or national security, but also culture. All of those things are talked about in the book because we live in some interesting times. And so it's not a biography. It's not even a biopic, but it is a story that starts with me and ends with me, and hopefully ends for the people that read it with answering that question, what you can do about it. Give you some step-by-step things to think about on how to get that job done, because we have to do that. But the big experience that convinced me to go that route after my partner that's helping me with the book pitched it at me was, you're right. I've done political campaigns statewide. We've raised, I think, I don't know, I've still got my Gator Pack that we created after my first campaign. And between the PAC and the campaigns, I think we raised over $6 or $7 million for the political arena. And got to get better at effectively organizing, using those resources, and winning more consistently. It's great that Donald Trump won the first time. I supported him in that general election, like you guys did. It's great. It's even a greater achievement that we won the second time. Very rare. Obviously, it had only been done one previous time. And the momentum was against us, and the organizations were against us. Even the government organized against us to win that. And everybody pitched in, but we still need to be able to organize and act and win so that we can consistently wield power, so we never find our country in a position that it was in before Donald Trump was elected second time, because Donald Trump's going to be off the stage here in a few short years. So it's up to us to do that. And that's that lack of organization that I saw on the campaign trails that I've been on our side, from our campaign culture, that's supposed to go all the way from the individual at the ground level, the individual voter at the ground level, to the top, in my case, the U.S. Senate candidate, the first two campaigns I was in, candidate. That structure and the ability to get that structure to respond and be completed with a victory more consistently is what I'm hoping people get out of the book.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's desperately needed. Even since I've been involved in politics, the level of involvement from, I'll call, regular people who aren't on the payroll has gone down. Mm-hmm. When I first started working on campaigns, you could count on volunteers to show up and make phone calls and door knock, and now we pay all those people. Mm-hmm. And so people are just less involved than they used to be. and that's not good for America. Certainly not good for the party, and it's got to change. I also know in the description of the book that we read, you talk a little bit about moral decay, and so I wanted to get what your definition of that was as you talk about it. What do you mean by it, and how do we start reversing that?
Well, the founders, there were more than one of them that said something like this. I'll paraphrase it the way I remember it, is that this government is only for a moral people or a virtuous people. They didn't mean goody two-shoes type morals or virtue. That's not what they meant. What they meant was a people that are intelligent enough and active enough in their own right, in their government, at their level. That's the only way this government works. And what has happened over the last 250 years is that this government has grown so vast and has so much financial resources and so much human resources available to that you and me, not being in the government, we think we have very little ability to affect change or affect the direction or affect the priorities of that government. And one of the reasons why that question that's the title of the book, what you can do about it, what can I do about it, has increased over time. And you just mentioned it, Kurt. When my first Senate campaign, it was almost entirely driven by volunteers, almost entirely driven. Phone calls. I remember people coming in and folding letters, 20,000 letters. I watched a group of 10 volunteers fold and lick envelopes and stamp 20,000 letters over a weekend.
Yeah.
You can't get that done today without paying people. And it's because we've lost confidence in our ability to affect that change or affect priorities or affect what government's going to do. And that moral decay that I'm talking about, that's a big part of it. And that's what the founders were talking about. From that kind of virtue or moral or morality there. But there's a new piece in our culture that's occurred over the last decade that is really challenging, I think, the American people. And I'm not talking about y'all and me or the people active in the political party. I'm talking about what we call the normies. You hear Steve Bannon use that term all the time. I use it too. The normies. The folks you were talking about that aren't actively doing something in politics every single day and those kind of things. We've got to get them to re-engage because that's the moral and virtuous people the founders were talking about. It's not us.
Well,
it can't just be us. It's got to be all of us.
Right.
So that morality and virtuousness, it continues to be eroded, but this trend of forcing people to do things, and I'm going to use the transgender ideology push that's been happening the last 5 years here as the example. That ideology forces average American through the use of government force to lie about the reality of scientific evidence and the reality of the way human beings are created, how they're created, what is created, men and women. It forces them to deny their belief in what they think believe God did, which is created men and women. I'm a Bible believing Christian, so that's my basic religious belief. That type of approach, and it's not just trans ideology, but that's probably the biggest example we could talk about today. That is eroding the virtuousness and is part of that moral decay, the way it's been done. And you don't even have to say that it's bad from a good, bad perspective, a black and white perspective, but you have to acknowledge that we are forcing Americans through the use of government to do something, lie to themselves, lie to their God, and disavow their beliefs. And that's against everything America stands for. Everything. that's a bigger piece of it that's happened just recently. That's really put us over the top and makes a book like this, what you can do about it, even more important.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know on the show you talk a lot about fake news, and for me, I first heard, for me, Trump, I think, is the first person who said that. Maybe not. I don't know. And the last, 5 to 7 years have really rocked my opinion of journalists. I always grew up as a conservative feeling like, okay, we aren't going to get a fair shake from the media. But they're at least reporting.
There's standards.
There's some standard of reporting. They're telling a story. Now they're going to tell the sort of left wing version of the story, but they're telling a story. And then something happened, and COVID certainly exposed it when you just realized.
Yeah, it's not about fact checking or
I can't trust any of it anymore. And we all kind of. So a lot of people, myself included, when Trump would talk about fake news, I would sometimes kind of roll my eyes like, okay. Now I think he, that there's probably more fake news these days than there is real news. And that's something that really, that really worries me, right? Is and I think is a real scourge on society right now is we just don't know what to trust. And I think that's why we're seeing shows like yours and Tucker Carlson, and I'm sure there's some even on the left that have become more popular, or people like Joe Rogan, who's not necessarily political, because at least they're putting people on the show and letting them talk for 2 or 3 hours about their thing, right? And it's not just some agenda they're pushing.
Well, you have direct access, right? You have direct access to hear an argument, hear the discussion, go in and do some research. And that is if you can get, unbiased research anymore, which, there's new tools coming out to help with that as well, so that you're not getting all of that bias through whatever search engine you're using or AI now. But yeah, I think that's what is exciting again about shows and podcasting again, because it's just alternative media, right? This entire ecosystem, because it's giving us greater access.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Trump was the first person I heard use the term fake news.
I believe so.
From a military person's perspective, one of the things that we started studying much more intently as I was growing as an officer in the military was called influence operations. Simply put, that's propaganda operations. And a lot of people think about it from a military perspective is, you've seen pictures of the leaflets. I have one that my son deployed to Jordan, the intersection of Jordan, Israel, and Syria, and was attacked. Their F-15Es were dropping these leaflets in Syria when first Trump administration, we were killing ISIS. But a lot of people think of an influence operation is that perspective. Yes, we do that. We also have aircraft that broadcast on loudspeakers as they're flying over an area. We also have the capability to broadcast into people's TVs, their cell phones, their radios, and get our message in there. But that is not a true influence operation. What we are seeing today, this is why it's so important for the great American people, the virtuous American people that we've been talking about, the founders knew were needed to run this country through this Constitution. This is why we need them so much. But this operation that's happening now, that was really the scales fell off of most people's eyes during the pandemic, brought it up, or shortly afterwards, when we saw even in the greatest, freest country in the world, churches closed, but strip bars left open. That is the craziness of not just the morality question of it, but that is the craziness of out of control tyrannical government that's overpowered, that the people have let get out of their control. And it all stems on the information flow. I don't know when this will air, but just this week, the Secretary of Defense just yesterday in real time, and the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness met with 10 somewhere between 10 and 25 military members that were harmed by the unlawful COVID vaccine mandate the order that Biden gave to the Department of Defense. They are having to help the Department of Defense get the 100,000 or so people the opportunity to come back on active duty and resume their careers, clean their records up, and remove all adverse activity from their records in order to do that. But more importantly, try to figure out, and I've been working with some of them, is how do we figure out how to hold the people that made those decisions accountable, that were commanders in the U.S. Armed Forces and in the Pentagon and were senior civilians there, without destroying the armed forces of the United States. Because if we don't hold them accountable, the armed forces of the United States is destroyed in its current form. Because even if the people came back in, that almost 100,000, they might still have to work for the same people that made those really unlawful, bad decisions that harmed them and their family. That's the level of effort that is going on in your government. And I haven't even talked about the media, but it was the media being complicit with the government output and the government propaganda plans of the pandemic, not just in the military, but all of the government agencies. Go back and look at some of those ads that we paid for on Fox News even, and review those ads. And that created an error or an ecosystem in this society where the people that were standing up and trying to say the truth were attacked, were harmed, were damaged, careers ended, financially ruined. Some cases one case court-martialed in the United States Army. Court-martialed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't know this, but the other Vindeman brother was a Judge Advocate General officer in charge of that particular court-martial. He's very proud of it. He's in Congress now.
Yeah.
Okay. So but it was the information campaign that led to all of these things. And that information campaign has led those American people that we're talking about, which is this book is for. I'll go back to my book, and my show is for fight the fake news with the truth. That's the simple motto of my show. It is. So those people somehow have to pull themselves up out of this cesspool of bad information from institutions that we grew up. I'm 64 years old in a couple months. We grew up trusting implicitly, not just in the government, but in the media. We have to pull ourselves out of that cesspool and find a way to both make these corrections and ensure our government and our society is reset back to that society and government that the people can control, and our grandchildren and children will be able to do that, serve in it if necessary to defend ourselves and be prosperous, because it's not doing the things that make a society unprosperous. That's what we want for our grandchildren. But in order to do that, we have to reach these people and reestablish this virtuous that the American people once had. And it's part of the influence operation. The propaganda is the thing that's got to be defeated.
Yeah.
And you're showing that by example. And so I love coming full circle as you're bringing back up your show and your book and how it started when you're young and volunteering to serve. And thank you for your service, and how you're continuing to do that now in your career by having your show and by writing this book that hopefully will help a lot of people understand, again, what they can do about it.
Yeah.
I love this, and it's a great call out for people who want to hear more about this and hear from you, that they can get access to that on your show, The Rob Maness Show.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go. I'd like to go an hour on fake news, but unfortunately we have just maybe 8 or 9 minutes left.
There's so much to choose from that you can talk about. On
our show, we always do the same 3 questions for every guest at the very end. And we call it
let's kick off our lightning round.
Yes, the lightning round. So we'll try 60, 90 seconds here, but there's no taboo buzzer. So we'll see.
Okay.
It's pretty light accountability.
Honor
here.
system. Yeah.
Yes. Pretty light accountability. But the first question we like to ask is, as you're, hopefully a long time from now, you're laying in bed in your final hours, you're looking back on your life. How will you know that you were successful or had a life well lived?
My children and grandchildren will be around me.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be talking with me and not afraid to talk with me. And they'll know that they have what we call have the stick now in the aviation business, and that they're well prepared for.
Yeah. Oh, I love that phrase.
I do.
That's cool.
You got to put that in your book somewhere. Yeah. That's a good metaphor there. Now, 60, 90 seconds for something completely different. 60, 90 seconds on something that's got you going down the rabbit hole lately. Maybe it's a hobby, sports interest, something that's a little off topic, but it's got you, obsessed, I guess.
Sailing.
Oh, okay.
I am I'm an aviator by profession, so I understand wind, compasses, speeds, air, sea, ground speed, that kind of concept, and everything. But I've never sailed a boat in my life. And when 3 years ago, we built a house on the beach in Gulfport, Mississippi, where our lot lines actually go out into the water. And I bought a Hobie tandem island 2-seat, 18-foot catamaran type kayak sailboat, and taught myself how to sail. And the reason why that popped out so quickly is that this year is the first year I haven't had my boat in the water at all. I usually get it in the spring when it's too cool, when my grandsons are visiting on their spring break from Iowa, and we didn't even do it this year. And now here we're coming up towards the middle of September, and I still it's out there ready to go.
Oh, you miss it.
So I miss it.
Yeah.
But that I am obsessed with getting back out there, because I've found that although I've gotten to fly beyond the speed of sound, and I've flown around the world and all kinds, many times. I've flown on every part of the world except for over Antarctica. I've never flown over the South Pole. But speed is always part of that. The pleasure of sailing under the power of wind is something that every human being should experience. And if you haven't seen The Old Man and the Sea, you should, or go read the book. I'm obsessed.
There we go.
That's good advice.
Yes.
I just envisioned that as you said that. It's like, oh, that does sound amazing.
Yeah, but see, I've been told that there's the two happiest days of boat ownership are the day you buy it and the day you sell it.
Well, there's no motor on this thing, so I don't have to mess with that. So, but it does have a sail that I've had to repair, and I'm trying to find a new one, and I can't find one.
Yes. Well, I'd like to end with... we always like to end with a little gratuitous self-marketing. So maybe the last 60, 90 seconds.
We're just trying to further challenge you on your humility here, Rob. That's what we're doing here.
Make a good 90-second pitch for folks to listen to the show or purchase the book when it comes out, whatever you want to choose.
Well, I had to overcome the humility of not ever talking about my own achievements in politics, because you have to tell people, they want to know. Unfortunately. Well, the show is called The Rob Maness Show. It's on a network called Worldview Tube. It's owned and operated by a man named Brannon House. You may recognize the name. He created Lindell TV and ran it for Mike for over 3 years. And this network, Worldview Tube, is operated out of Memphis, Tennessee. And they produce my show Monday through Thursday live from 3 o'clock to 4 p.m. Eastern. During that show, we do something unique that a friend of mine perfected when this iteration of the show, right at the beginning of this iteration of the show started, and it's called a simulcast with an X space audience. Mm-hmm. So a space on X's, an audio audience on spaces, and it allows me to bring a live audience in and take questions of them, similar to what the old talk radio taking live callers was, but it's in a live television broadcast in a format that's like the old Tucker Carlson Fox News channel format, except we take live questions, usually one question per 15-minute segment. So that show live runs from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. The space starts at 2:30 and runs usually to 4:30 if I can stay. Sometimes my schedule won't allow it, but I try to be in the space for the full 2 hours because we have to restrict the question during that hour in the broadcast. So Monday through Thursday, live, World YouTube. You can also find it on all my social media channels. And please subscribe to one of them if you can. I'm on Facebook at COL Rob Maness, on Twitter, X. I'm sorry, Elon. I'm on X at Rob Maness, Getter at Rob Maness, True Social at Rob Maness. The show is on Rumble. World YouTube's live stream is on Rumble. Just type in World YouTube and you'll get it. And I have the Rob Maness Show channel that the show gets uploaded to both on YouTube and on Rumble. After the
Guys,
production
it's everywhere.
Version of it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And the book, What You Can Do About It, should be out no later than early December of this year, 2025. We're excited about it. I've had to go through the pain of setting up all the electronic places where it'll be available. So it'll be available on Amazon and all those places. And I think we're going to do a bonus chapter that if you subscribe early, or you sign up and buy it early, you'll get the 11th chapter, which will be a bonus chapter. And there'll be some things that you've never heard before in that chapter. And I've been around I'm not famous, but I've been around some pretty famous people. And I guarantee you the best stuff will be in that chapter. So we're encouraging people to do that. And as soon as I am able to, I will be putting that information out and I'll let you guys know on how to get signed up for it.
Oh, yeah. And we'll make sure we've got that in the show notes. And I thank you for your time because, like you said, you record regularly and we know that you're right off to go do another one. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, you've just heard how you can catch up with the Colonel and take advantage of all the stuff he's doing. So robmaness.com. And again, if you search for his show, it will not be hard to find.
Is it robmaness.com or .co?
Robmaness.com is my website. The show's also posted there. Of course, my writing is posted there. And I'm on Substack, too. I forgot to mention. The Colonel's Brief. Colonel's Brief on Substack.
Oh, I like that.
I know.
I like that.
He's up to
you
all
can do
of
a
it.
free subscribe to that, or you can donate a subscription, too. Same thing on X. I can take paid subscriptions, but I don't really ask for them. But if people donate them, I don't turn them down. It helps pay for the stuff, obviously. You guys know. And the Substack puts the show out in the evening after the live broadcast. And so do all my social media channels that evening. Gets uploaded content.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. And thanks for continuing to serve and leading the way with example. It's just awesome to see. And for those of you tuning in, thanks so much for your time. We know how valuable it is. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. Until next time.